Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass the Move. For today's episode, we're doing another request. We did Southampton in the last episode, and for this episode, we'll be doing Celtic in Scotland, of course, the Ladbrokes Premiership. So yeah, definitely, if you've got any requests, then just write it down in the comment section. We'll get to it. So, as you can see, I haven't done anything at all. This is literally just started the career modes as I would do it myself, and that way we can go through the steps one by one as how I would normally do it. So in real life, of course, Celtic are a team who went the season unbeaten, so to top that would be a little bit difficult, but yeah, you should pretty much walk with the title once more. The history says that the Rangers have won it the most times, but in terms of the past winners, you've gotten about 5 times in a row, so let's make it 6. So what we'll be doing is, of course, sorting out the squad, instructions, the tactics, all that sort of business, and just give you a tactical and a team guide, who to sell, who to keep, or whatnot. So one of the first things I do is have a look at my staff, who I want to keep, of course, and who I want to sell and whatnot. But first of all, I need to try and find out whose judgment of ability I can really trust. Now, over here, it's not too great that the best judgment of ability in my staff is an actual goalkeeping coach instead. That means his judgment when it comes to other players is a little bit skewed if they're not a goalkeeper. So you just want to keep an eye out on that. If you do have the money, and Celtic have got about 15 million, you would probably be better off improving some key staff, such as your assistant manager and probably head of youth development. Just bear in mind before you fire them if you can actually find someone better. So in terms of finances, we already went through that, but we want to try and find out how much money we've got. So you've got 2 million in the bank. You're off from your wages about 15k, so just keep that in mind. I would say you might want to lower that a little bit more before you try and reinvest that. So let's have a look at the squad, who we should keep and who we should move on. So just to quickly get through this, we would want to actually move, just for the sake of the video anyways, get rid of all these players who are out on loan. We can free up this squad a little bit. It's a bit too messy for my liking. You've got too many players here. We shouldn't be scrolling this far down. Alright, so there you go. We've got still a little bit too many numbers. For me, my liking is 22 players, and like I always mention in my videos, you need the first 11 of top, ready-made players for your division, leading star, world-class players type of thing, and then your backup 11 should be youngsters with potential who can eventually compete with these world-class players and maybe even become them. So we've got 25 here, so it looks like we've got too many numbers, but whether that's true or not, we might be short in some other places, and overstocked in others. That way we can find out whether we need to actually sell anyone or just move things around basically and reinvest it elsewhere. So you've got a couple of injured players, 2 to 3 months here for Jozo. Eric's out for 8 weeks to 3 months. It looks like the average is 3 months. I was worried there was any seriously long-term injuries, but it doesn't seem like it. So one of the other first things I do is actually look at who should be in the first team, who shouldn't be. So Tommy is one of the best ones for judgment of ability. I didn't realize Tommy was really good as well. Maybe we should trust Tommy a little bit. I mean, his judgment of potential is not as good as a goalkeeper, but we should try and trust him a little bit more just because he's an actual coach. So he thinks Emilio is a leading player for the division, so that's great, even though he's one of the worst rated players. Logan is just a good player. We're just basically just double checking to see if there's anyone here who doesn't deserve to be here. But it looks like everyone does. So with a team like Celtic, your depth is huge. Moussa Dembele is 4 stars, and definitely suited for the division. So let's sort out by ability and see what kind of best 11 we can make. We'll have a quick look at the tactics. So it's by default a 4-3-3. My assistant manager thinks we should play a 4-3-3 narrow. I would say that's not a bad shout, but it's kind of a difficult tactic to pull off. So maybe we can consider it as our direct style of play. So if we play a 4-3-3 narrow, that would suit a direct style play. So we'll be doing 2 tactics, one possession-based tactic and one direct style of play, and that way you've got 2 options. You don't want to use both, of course. You just want to stick to either one and build around that type of tactic, tweak a little bit here and there for your other 2 slots. but you don't want to use both because it's two different styles of play and you'll need two different sets of players to pull it off. Basically, it's just to give you options and try and pull your team into one of those directions. So according to your squad, let's see what formation suits us best. Is our assistant manager right or not? So this is the best 11 players, and we've got a striker here, Moussa Dembele. We've got a right back, Mikel, who's also capable as a centre back. Can he really do that well? He's a decent centre back, probably better off as a right back. Central midfielder and Scott Brown, possibly a winger as well, not so much though according to his attributes. Griffiths is a striker as well. Eric, centre back. Colo Torre, centre back. Goalkeeper and Craig Gordon. Scott Sinclair as a left winger. Kieran Tierney left back. And Stuart Armstrong attacking midfielder, centre midfielder, and a central midfielder, defensive midfielder. So it looks like you've got a little bit of an unbalanced side, I would say. You've got two different directions you can take it. It looks like we should definitely be playing with two strikers, but somehow we're supposed to squeeze in a left winger as well as central midfielders, defensive midfielders, and centre backs, and all that sort of business. So definitely you've got a strong back four here. We don't need to really play a back three. It's not necessary at all, but I would say it kind of makes sense why your assistant manager is recommending a 4-3-3. Let's see what the numbers say. What would the numbers edge us towards? Plenty of centre backs. You've got central midfielders, wingers, attacking midfielders. And the striker. Alright, so it looks like you should play the 4-3-3. The possession-based one. For the direct style play, I think we just have to play the 4-4-2. We definitely don't have the numbers to be playing a 4-3-3 with three strikers. Maybe our wingers are capable of playing as strikers. No, not necessarily. I'm not sure why my assistant thought that. I think he's lost his head. Even a 4-4-2 is a little bit tough for a direct style play. I think you might actually be better off playing the 4-1-4-1, but we'll go with the 4-4-2 just because it's the only way we get to play Griffiths and Dembele together. With the 4-3-3, they'll be competing with each other, when it's kind of sad to see that because they both squeeze into the best 11 players in the squad. So let's quickly do the instructions and the tactics, and we'll get back to the roles when we get to know our players a little bit better, when we find out who to sell and who to keep. So in terms of your possession-based tactic, definitely go for the counter, standard, or control. All are very good mentalities for keeping possession. Control is your best bet, of course, but don't be afraid, of course, with going with any other mentalities. They're all decent shouts. Don't think that you're limited to any of these. It's just that these suit your style of play a little bit more. So we'll go with control. Lower tempos, shorter passing, being more expressive, and roam for positions are my instructions that I like myself. It's all about your preferences. This just suits possession a bit more. This is my preferences. But if you want to know what type of instructions suit possession-based tactics, getting rid of be more expressive not necessarily will help it, but it just means your players won't take too many risks, and that way they won't lose the ball too often. Retaining possession, playing out of defense, and working the ball into the box are wonderful shouts for keeping possession. You can look for overlap as well. Decent shout. Winning the ball back by playing a higher line, offside trap, and closing down more, all very good shouts. Getting stuck in is a great way of trying to win the ball back more and keeping possession yourself. Just bear in mind, of course, that you will face the wrath of the referee, basically. Tighter marking, good shout as well. Preventing the opposition goalkeeper from passing it short to his players, his defenders and whatnot. Also a very good shout for keeping that high possession. In terms of your width, it naturally goes a little bit narrower, but if you play the narrower width, or even fairly narrow, there are really good shouts as well, because your team is playing closer together, so it's a good team shape as well. You build a little bit more solid defensively, but you'll also keep things ticking over a bit better because your players can find each other easier. But yeah, just for the video, we'll be going with my instructions, which are these. And like I always say in all my other videos, you'll easily keep 60% possession with this instruction, just as you would with the other one that we just went through earlier. In terms of the 4-4-2 in the direct style of play, counter and attacking are your best bets. I'm pretty sure everyone knows 4-4-2s are great for countering, and they're just as good if you want to play an attacking. The point is, they're really good for direct style of play. They're pretty much your go-to tactic when you're playing directly, just as much as a 4-3-3 is your go-to tactic when you're playing possession based. So yeah, we'll be going with attacking for the sake of the video. In terms of the instructions, it's kind of the opposite. You'll be playing a higher tempo, a more direct style of passing. Being more expressive and roam from positions are still my preferences, but again, if you'd like a lot of instructions, you can get rid of roam from positions, you can clear the ball into flanks, and run a defense are very good shots that I love for direct style of play. You can also hit early crosses, pass in space, all very good shouts. Shooting on sight is a bit excessive, but you know, if your players have good finishing and you want to let them have the freedom of shooting whenever they think they can get a goal, then shoot on sight is a decent shout. But you should probably save that for the last 10 minutes of the game, rather than, you know, playing it from the get-go. In terms of your defense, you can pretty much get away with not doing anything here, but if you did play a deeper line and close down less, not only will you have a better team shape, but you'll also draw your opposition into you, and that way you can hit them on the counter better. Staying on your feet will probably help with that a little bit more as well. So naturally you play a little bit wider when you're playing a higher tempo and direct passing. See if we quickly just put that down to normal, the width falls. But if you do want to really take the opposition on as much as possible, you can play all out wide in your width. So let's quickly just go back to what I had. And there you go, that's a tactic and an instruction. We've got the formation down, we've got the instructions down, we've got the mentality sorted. Now let's get to know our players. In terms of your squad, in terms of numbers, we already mentioned that we're excessive, and you can kind of see where we've got 3 goalkeepers when we don't need them. Craig Gordon, already a star player. Doris is a star player as well, so you've got 2 great goalkeepers there. They are a little bit, you know, old, I would say, so just keep an eye out on that. You might want to just bring in a youngster with potential who's not necessarily ready to the division. Just keep him, you know, out on loan or on the under 20s, just for the sake of when Gordon and Doris sorry about that, can't actually play anymore, basically, when they want to retire. Logan's the one who's probably best to sell. I think he's just been brought in recently, fairly recently, I suppose. I think you can sell him, move him on. Really no need to keep him. So you just need 2 goalkeepers, in my opinion. Like I said, you need a first 11 of leading players and a backup 11 of youngsters with potential. That way there's a nice balance. No one's really, you know, arguing with each other for game time, and there's a nice little balance between experience and youth, and they're still battling it out for game time, or battling it out for the position itself. Basically, the youngster wants to prove himself, the experienced player wants to try and keep his position as much as possible and keep that youngster out. Anyways, in terms of your right backs, you've got 2, which is great. You know, in terms of numbers, Michael's definitely your starter. He's susceptible to injuries though, so keep that in mind. If he gets injured too often, you might want to move him on and just bring in another star player who doesn't get injured. So Christian's a really good backup as well, star player for the league again. You've got an incredibly strong squad. You should definitely walk the league. It's all about pushing on to becoming Champions League winners. So you might want to improve on some of these some of these players who have lower stars. Kieran Tierney is a youngster with potential, but he is your starting left back. Emilio is, supposedly worse off than him, but he still is a leading player for the division itself. So no one really to sell so far in terms of the players we've mentioned, other than Logan. In the centre back position, looks like you've got too many. You've got 5. You just need 4. Whether you're playing the 4-4-2 or the 4-3-3, you're sorted. So it's just about, you know, who you should sell. I think they're all leading players. It's just about who's the worst of them in terms of star ability. So Colotori, star player, definitely keep him. He is old, but he should do your team a job. FA is only a good player, so you might want to consider him to be the one that you move on. Jozo leading, Eric star, so it should be Eric and Colotori who start your team, and Dedrick is a good backup, and Jozo should be a decent backup as well. He's got, you know, potential to become a star player as well. And that way FA is the one to go. In terms of your central midfield, you might want to, it depends which formation you're playing. So if you're playing the 4-3-3, then these attacking midfielders need to be retrained as central midfielders, and that way you've got the numbers. You just need 6. You need 2 defensive midfielders and 4 central midfielders. If you're playing the 4-4-2, you've already sorted the numbers here, and you might want to move on your attacking midfielders accordingly. So it looks like everyone's sorted. You got Kusai, who's not necessarily the best, but he is suited for the division and he will improve. He is that youngster with potential who will be competing with, star players such as Scott Brown, who's another player who's susceptible to injury, so just keep that in mind as well. Near Biton is another star player. He looks like he should be starting as well. Callum, star as well. You're really heavily stocked in central midfield. Nothing to worry about. James Forrest, Patrick Roberts, Scott Sinclair. Looks like you're sorted in the wings as well in terms of numbers. The only thing to consider is whether you need to improve them in terms of ability, but it doesn't seem too likely. It's just about what you need to do with Celtic, basically, by the looks of the squad, is just look at your transfer market, what's available, who you can realistically bring in without breaking the bank, and still being able to push on to being a very good Champions League team. That's why they brought in Dembele, for example. He's, you're already stocked with Griffiths, but when you bring in Dembele, you're pushing up even further in terms of your Champions League quality. You're definitely sorted for the league. It's just about the Champions League. So you've got the numbers and the abilities for the wings. Nothing to worry about there. The Chris Commons, Tom Roderick and Stuart Armstrong players, you really need to be careful with where you want to play them. According to which formation you use. They don't necessarily suit either tactic, but they weren't necessarily in the first 11 players or the best 11 players that we had when we sorted them in ability, so you won't be losing out too much. Even though they are star players for the team, for the division, I wouldn't say you're losing out too much if you sell them. They're 2.4 million, but he's only on 8k wage budget, so why not keep him? It's just according to numbers. So if you are playing the 4-3-3, you've got too many, you do want to sell just one. That way you have 6 and you're sorted. But if you're playing the 4-4-2, you don't necessarily need any of these. You might want to sell them, move them on, and that way you can bring in 2 other strikers. So you've got 4 strikers and you've got a perfect balance to your team. We've already gone through Griffiths and Dembele, so I think we can move on. Now that we know our players a little bit better, we can move on to making our, playing the roles basically. So in terms of defense, we'll just have a quick look again. It looks like just stick to the standard central defenders. We're playing both Eric and Kolo Touré, and both are comfortably central defenders. Out wide, you would want to play wingers is my suggestion. I love wingers more than inside forwards, but your team seems to suit inside forwards a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so you will probably have to play inside forwards. Just bear in mind when you do play the wingers, switch to wingers as well. So it's inside forwards complemented by wing backs. And if you play wingers, just complement them with fullbacks. And there you go. Now, I would normally say that your best midfield would have the makeup of this midfield. This is what I love. This is how I like my squad to look like when you're playing a 4-3-3. Obviously I like wingers a bit more, but when you play a 4-3-3 you can play inside forwards because they can cut into this little space here. The false 9 will be close to them as well. When you play an advanced playmaker in the 4-2-3-1 for example, and you play inside forwards, the inside forward gets into the space of the advanced playmaker a little bit, so when the space is empty here, so you can kind of make use of it. If not, wingers would just do the job as well. But anyways, this is what I like to build up to eventually. Whether your team can play that is a different story entirely. I don't think we've got a false 9, I think we have to play the complete forward on support. But in terms of your midfield, you don't necessarily have that. So your defensive midfielder, Bowie for example, is just a register and a roaming playmaker. You probably play defensive midfielder. I think that would suit your other players who would have to play in defensive mid. So Scott Brown for example, defensive midfielder. Even though he's best off as a ball winning midfielder, we just have to try and play the best central midfielder as possible. You definitely have to play an advanced playmaker, so if you are playing a 4-3-3 it does make sense to retrain one of these attacking midfielders, but again you've got Near Biton who can play as an advanced playmaker. I think where you're gonna need to tweak is your defensive mid and your central midfielder there. So if you play defensive midfielder here, which suits them a little bit more, and possibly a box-to-box midfielder, because that did suit one of the players here in Callum McGregor, then that is a decent shout as well. And that's pretty much how your team should look. We'll have a quick look at the strikers. Dembele, we already mentioned, complete forward on support. He can definitely really do the poacher role or the advanced forward role, but we do need a player on a support role, and so complete forward on support suits that best. His vision and passing hopefully will improve, But yeah, complete forward on support without a doubt. I think Griffiths can kind of do the complete forward on support role as well. So there you go, this is how your team should look like if you're playing the 4-1-2-3 DM wide, which is the 4-3-3 basically. In terms of the 4-4-2, this is where you can kind of experiment a bit more. So if you play the complete forward on support here and advance forward, you've got your best two strikers there. But I would say, again, the best duo for direct style of play and a your striker duo basically is a target man on support and a poacher. That would be perfect. But for now, your best team is a complete forward on support and an advanced forward. Definitely play wingers, so you'll have to retrain the inside forwards to play as wingers. Just bear in mind, if you're playing a right winger, he should be right forward. That way he doesn't cut in. Fullback on attacks to complement your wingers. Still central defenders here, and this is where you get to experiment a little bit more. So I would say if you're forced into playing two midfielders, it looks like your best bet is Scott Brown and Nir Bitton. And I think Nir Bitton will have to play a little bit uncomfortably as a deep line playmaker. I said uncomfortably because I thought he's an advanced playmaker, but he does this role better than an advanced playmaker role, to be honest. He's got great positioning, so deep line playmaker on defend, and a box-to-box midfielder is what I recommend working towards, but your player probably suits the ball-winning midfielder a little bit more. Scott Brown can do the box-to-box midfielder role. He's got the fitness for it, the stamina and whatnot, but acceleration, decisions and long shots are not too great, as well as finishing and first touch. So if you play him as a ball-winning midfielder, that suits him a lot more. The only bad attribute here is literally just acceleration. Great tackling, great work rate, great determination, incredible mentals, stamina, everything. So just play him, and that's how your direct style play should look. I've already recommended what you should eventually build up to, but this is the team that you want to be playing with for now. Just bear in mind, when you invest in what you're trying to build rather than what you've got right now. But yeah, that should be all for today's episode. We'll have a look at the under-20s and see who you should keep an eye on. A couple of youngsters here that you should do. Anyone from here up until here is players who should basically slot seamlessly into your first 11. Just keep sending them out on loan, as you can see here, and giving them as much game time as possible. Looks like some of them are far off, but some of them are pretty close. I think when these players get back from loan, you can put them into your team easily. I would say though, just bear in mind, it's not like other leagues. When they are ready for the first division, they might not necessarily be good enough for the first team. So they will be ready for the division, but not good enough for the first team, because you're a team who are trying to push on in the Champions League. So just keep that in mind. Are they good enough for the Champions League? Don't think about it anymore. Are they good enough for the league? It's more about, are they good enough for the Champions League? But yeah, that should be all for today's episode. So if you did enjoy it, then please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, thank you all for watching.